Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, today we have some video for you today. Imagine that. Video of a car doing car things. My buddy Ryan Ackerman, Whackshack, Mr. Ryan Ackerman, man of many talents, fabrication, driver, whatnot, has the Whackshack Mustang. If you search back, and maybe if you guys ask, I'll remember. Maybe if you yell at me, I will certainly include a link to some Whackshack playlist I believe that I have. So he has a twin turbo Mustang that he built. It has gone extremely fast. It's gone low eights, and it continues. It plagues him at times. I feel like my poor buddy Ryan is one of those guys Murphy's Law settles on particularly hard, and I don't fault him at all for wanting something he could just drive. So what's pretty cool is he built a LS Swap Colorado, and he even did a bunch of custom work to the back end, lowered the hell out of it. It is extremely low, and but it looks cool, to be honest. Doesn't this thing look awesome? What he did was he put a Ly6 in it, almost completely stone stock Ly6, and it has a Nissan Frontier 6-speed manual trans, and LOJ facilitated that. LOJ makes a swap bracket plate clutch flywheel combination to do this, and the Frontier transmission lends itself better to a truck or a farther back swap for a shifter to fit something like this, and it all fit handsomely. And what's also neat is he took this thing and he put a Terminator X on it. Do I have a good photo of the engine bay here? Oh man, I do. Sweet. You guys see this thing. Terminator X integrated, built a Whackshack plasma cut bracket to hold the ECU. Isn't he a fancy boy? So it almost looks completely stock, other than it just has a filter jammed on here. And this was a little bit of an issue as we went through the dyno tuning, and I'll explain that. Getting all the hot air off the rad certainly killing power, and we verified that by the end of the tuning session. So he put this thing on, and what's really neat is it's completely stock Ly6. It has iron truck manifolds on it. It has a stock truck intake manifold. It has a G Plus or a War Performance manifold. I am not sure. What do we got here? I think it's a G Plus. It just says 92. War Performance actually says War. So he got a eBay throttle, and he's not particularly happy with it. Whistles quite a bit. He did want to do drive-by-wire and bought Summit or something, had a good discount, and they listed this as a drive-by-wire compatible, and then what he received was not drive-by-wire, and that's its own fiasco, obviously, and that's annoying. So anyway, he got stuck with this situation. So he drives this car daily, and he has for months, and it had stock injectors in it early on, and I gave him a set of Snake Eater 850s simply because he wanted to do flex, and farther down the road he may do something wild with this, like an LSA, because it's an Ly6. It has square port heads and everything already. And originally when he started this swap, he stopped by my house and he's like, I would love to do a crazy camshaft in this. And unfortunately for him, I had some really wild, gigantic camshafts. And after he's like, has to fly cut pistons and some other stuff, he's like, I don't want to do all that. So he put a sloppy stage 2 in it, and he put iron manifolds in because the frame rails are kind of tight on these, and someone had loaned him a set of long tubes and they did not fit. And he was like, you know what, I want simple and I want to drive this. So he got it driving, which is always advice personally of mine for everybody, including you guys. Get the thing driving and do everything else later. It's amazing how much simpler it is once it's already running and you're motivated, and the vehicle itself, you don't need to push it around. Anyway, we're soapboxing. Let's get right into it. Completely stock Ly6 intake with the 4-bolt cable adapted to it. Stock iron manifolds, completely stock Ly6. It has Elgin valve springs that I had laying around, and it has a sloppy stage 2 that I had on the shelf. And we tossed it on the dyno, and we made some hits. and it made like 313 initially. What is, let me see if this shows that. Made 313 initially with a nice safe 87 tune, and then it made 364 leaning on it with E85 and a spark plug change. And the key note there is we changed the spark plugs because halfway through the dyno session, I found out he had BR7EFs, and obviously he just had those laying around, and very similar to my truck the other day. I threw it on the dyno, and it didn't have appropriate plug gap for what I was going to do. But that's what happens when you tune people's cars and you want to take your own on your own time, and you have no time, and you're like, oh, just go today. And then you're like, oh, my plug gap is 30. So, you know, we joked about it, and we're like, that's one of those things. So I had conservative ignition in this thing, like 12 down low and about 18 up top, and it made 313. And then I gradually increased timing in all areas and found out that it didn't really gain down low, but it did like above 4,000. It did like ignition, which makes sense. But at some point, it couldn't really do anything with ignition because it has iron manifolds and some other things that make the swap easy, but things that don't, you know, aren't 100% aesthetic for high-end power. And then at some point, we swapped it over to E. So what we will do here is open data log. Here's what we're going to do is we're going to dump in some first hit on 87 octane tune. So here's the log, and we roll in and we see a 12.5 target and 21 degrees up top. So when I floored it at 1800, you can see here it's wide open at 2000. And I have 13.7 in it, and then all the way out it has 21 in it, and that's what produced a 313 wheel. And then I made a quick timing adjustment, and I'm like, man, I thought this would make more power. And then I remembered, I asked him, and he's like, it has iron manifolds, dude. I put truck manifolds on it. So here again is here's 20 down low. I increased it quite a bit just to see what it would do. 20 down low and 24 up top, and that I mean, that's between 1 and 2, and it made nearly nothing. So what was interesting to find was obviously there's no gain down low, so you need to take that ignition back out, but it did like some up top. And then for pass number 3, I wrote it made 328 rear wheel, and it was out of octane, so I probably put a splash bit more in there. Let's take a quick look. So this is where I wrote out of octane because we just weren't seeing the gain proportionally. So I lowered it back down to 13 degrees, and then this was 25 up top, and now that is hit number 3. So what we want to see is a comparison between 2 and 3, and we'll turn on torque also. So nearly no torque gain down low and nearly no horsepower gain up top from 24 to 25. So that's where you quit. So this is where we enabled all of the flex stuff. I didn't want to close WinPep on you guys, I'm sorry. I believe this is where we initiated the flex, and we started dumping in flex multiplier. So yeah, it has, yep, we've got to 50% alcohol, and we made a hit, and I'm like, man, it's gonna gain like crazy on alcohol. And I had an offset in here, so base ignition is 12, and the flex spark adder is adding a little bit down low, so we're getting 15. It's adding 3 at 50%. And then all the way out up here, it's targeting a 12.7. It's offsetting the air fuel with based off flex also. So 28 up top, shooting for a 12.7, mostly gathering that. And then kind of disappointing here, to be honest with you. That's 3 and 4. Between 3 and 4 here, there was almost no gains. And then as we kept messing with it, I realized that his manifold inlet temperature after all these hits was pretty high, as you would assume. Manifold temp, manifold temp, manifold temp, manifold temp. 150 degrees, but then you see that filter and everything is right behind the radiator. So that's an issue. His inlet temp was through the roof. So we took the filter off and it barely picked up any horsepower at all. So it's called no filter. This is the same pass, and we made a mirror pass to see if it would gain, and I threw a tiny bit of ignition and it barely gained anything. It didn't really do anything at all. So it's a key note for you guys. It picked up 10 wheel, and then the ignition and everything was inconsequential, to be honest. And then I believe I lowered ignition between 5 and 6. And the big gain here was he had BR7 EFs. We called the local auto store. This was like 8:30 at night, almost 8 o'clock. And we got TR55s for all motor application. And I said to him, you'll pick up 10, 15 rear wheel just with the spark plug change for an all motor car. 7 is way too cold, especially for E. And this is what it picked up. So what we're going to look at real quick is go 334. So these are the hits between. So what do we do down low? 15 down low, 28 up top. 15 down low and 28 up top. I mean, it's all motor. I was just leaning on it. Who cares? It's all motor. 15 down low, roughly 27, 28 up top. I pulled the degree out. Actually, it could have been pulling it too because of the, let's see, 131's not that bad. So that was these two hits. We pulled a degree out and we still made 10 rear wheel nearly everywhere. And that's because of the appropriate spark plug, to be honest. That's the big gain. I told him it's all because of the spark plug. And then what I did was, so what do we have here? Between 6 and 7, was there any gain? Not really. I was messing with ignition. And then at some point we let it cool off, and then I tried another gear ratio just to load it more. And then for fun, we let it cool off quite a bit. So for number 10 here, I'm like, I guarantee all you're getting is extremely hot air off the radiator straight into the throttle body. So if we take a look at the running average here, well, this good hot hit here, 354. 354, what do we got? We got the same, it has a little bit spicier down low. We just hit it hard, this one, and I was like, why? I can't believe this isn't gaining, but it's because of the iron manifolds are really choking it out. So we were slamming it, and it only made 350. And then, what do we got here? Oh, what I wanted to see was inlet temperature for you guys too. I'm sorry. So sorry. What a jerk. So this was after many, many hits. Yeah, 123 again. So then this is our good, clean, a little bit cooled off all motor. This is what you show your friends dyno plot. So this was 27 degrees up top. Conservative air fuel. Only 98 inlet temp. So we knocked 30 degrees out of the inlet temp, and I want to show you guys what 30 degrees out of the inlet temp looks like. I mean, these are two different speeds, but they were inconsequential with 4th and 5th gear. So these are simply the gains in horsepower based off of that 30 degree, 50 degree intake air delta. Pretty important. For even this all motor car, having the throttle body right behind the radiator was really killing the power on it. So, and then what I also wanted to show you guys, which one is it? Is it this one? So this is a stock Ly6 locked converter pickup truck that I tuned on 91, and it made 300 rear wheel. So that's the red graph. And then this is Ackerman's Sloppy Stage 2 E85 Ly6, also pretty much completely stock otherwise. And you can see there's pretty much a 64 horsepower gain on E and the plugs and the camshaft together. And obviously if this had long tubes or something else, it would pick up significantly also. I think a car intake would shine better in this scenario. Turbo really doesn't seem to care at all about the truck intake. Does extremely well. But if you take a look at this thing quitting at 5,500 RPM, it's definitely not getting air in and out as much as you would want it to. So, and like he said, he works with a guy who has a Nitrous Pro mod almost endlessly, and he's like, I could put nitrous on this car for almost nothing. And I said, well, as soon as I'm done spraying my G, how about I just give you the entire nitrous kit off the G? It's a 4-bolt plate, and you can spray this car dry. Another thing we should show you is, let's fire up that Terminator quick. Here's the Terminator, and then we're going to dump this data log. Here's a funny one for you. So this has Snake Eater SEP 850 cc's, roughly 80-pound injector. And where is... Do I have it here? Sensors. Injector pulse width. Where is duty cycle? I might have to throw it in for you guys real quick. Oh, 32% duty cycle on 50% alcohol. So I'm like, this thing's a perfect candidate for spraying dry. Spray the nitrous and have the injectors, base Terminator setup, do everything. You're not doing anything else with this car and ECU. You'll have great capability to do that. So that's what we're going to revisit. He's just going to spray it, and we'll do some safe spray. And I'll probably give him the low dollar, the transducer and everything I have for the entire nitrous kit. He can install it, and it'll be neat to see those results. So more so, what's really neat for you guys to see out of all this is literally just the engine with a cam, stock intake and manifolds. Just get it in and get the party going, and then go from there. So he had it driving and drives it every day and has a ton of fun with it, and didn't let everything hang him up. So important to see all that. Easy to add a turbo. It'd be incredibly easy for him to add an LSA or some sort of like blower kit, whatever he wants. But it's how much does he want to complicate it and whatever else. So as of right now, he gets in and keys this thing and drives it with the AC on, and he loves it. So he has to weigh that in. He already has a race car that gives him problems whenever it can. So thought you guys would like to see all of that and give our guy Whackshack congratulations and nice build and everything else, and appreciate the data and the polls and blah blah blah. Have a good one.